Salutations, one and all, and welcome to RWBY Revisited. For this month's installment, let's take a look at the Ever After, and just how much it does or doesn't affect the story, and its potential implications. Please be aware that spoilers for all seasons will follow, and any material explained or revealed in supplementary material will not be weighted as heavily as that featured in the show. So, after the end of Season 8, we had almost nothing for pretty much 2 years. All we had to work with was this shot of crescent rose stuck in the sand of a beach with bizarre plant life and a massive tree in the background. That was it. Because of this, speculation ran rampant, often wildly so. With next to no information to go off of, most theories were just as good as the next. After all, how could anyone support or refute a hypothesis when there was nothing to either back it up or tear it down? But eventually, Volume 9 did arrive. On Crunchyroll exclusively. But that's not what we're here to look at. We spent all of Season 9 in this place, so how exactly does it stack up? Well, unfortunately, not that well. Starting at the beginning, the Ever After existed before Remnant. According to the blacksmith, the Ever After was, to quote, overgrown, wild and dangerous. But she just said previously that the brother gods were the first inhabitants of the Ever After. She describes that the brothers were made to, quote, help tame it. So if they were the first beings, who exactly was it dangerous for? The tree? Obviously not, as it's the god-creating entity. There was nobody there for it to be dangerous to. Also, if plants were around, then the gods couldn't have been the tree's earliest blossoms. Plants are very much living things. They're born from a seed, live, and eventually die like everything else. Already, there are some inconsistencies.
There are some inconsistencies in your story. Like everything that you said.
So the brother gods were given the ability to destroy first, clearing away much of the vegetation before then being given the ability to create. And thus they created the beings that inhabit this strange place. But then, after a somewhat awkwardly conveyed delivery, the blacksmith tells us that the brothers then created the Curious Cat that could fulfill their role for them. She words it as, using the skills and tools they had been given, they began to design their own creations in utmost secrecy. However, not a moment ago, she had just said, and gave them roles to play, referring to the other inhabitants of the Ever After. This means that these creatures that dwell here did not have a predisposed purpose, but were instead given one by the gods. So what then was the tree doing? It has the ability to spit out beings with divine power, but doesn't seem to have any drive or purpose behind doing so. Why stop at 2? Why create them to shape the Ever After when you yourself eclipse them in terms of power and could do it yourself? But after creating the cat, they concocted the Jabberwocker. Why this is, I can't say. The illustrations depict the cat as being able to fix whatever ailed the creatures of the Ever After, so what then was the Jabberwocker intended to do? I'll swing back around to that thing in a bit. Though apparently the gods were opposed as to whether or not they should destroy the Jabberwocker. Which god favored which outcome is unknown though. It would seem as though the god of light wanted it gone, but that conflicts with what was shown about the god of dark being so ready to kill everything.
50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
Apparently, though, the Ever After could no longer bear the brothers' experiments, and so the tree built them a special doorway to a greater beyond. Those are the exact words of the blacksmith. Essentially, Mom kicked them out of the house because they kept misbehaving. I will say that this indicates a higher level of maturity on the tree's part than the gods themselves possess, as they killed off all of humanity for the actions of a few. Honestly, they're more childish than anyone else in this series. But apparently, this doorway would remain open to them if they chose to return, and oddly enough, any of their creations, as the blacksmith states. So that brings me to the first point. We're told numerous times that Alex and her brother Louis came here before Team RWBY, Jean, and Neo. Somehow. No, really, we are never told how they got here. How did they manage that? Let's have a quick rundown of how our main cast ended up here. They used the Staff of Creation to conjure portals from one location to another, fell off of the intervening space, which apparently spat them out here. How then did Alex and Louis arrive here? They were never mentioned or shown to have the staff in their possession, so that root's off the table. Genuinely, there is no way that they could have ended up here unless there is some other method. And if that's the case, then how has nobody else found it? Or anything from Ever After gotten out? Really, throughout Season 9, I kept asking how the two of them managed to get to the Ever After, but there is nothing on that front. At all. Nobody asks how they got here, and the show provides no explanation.
I don't need sleep, I need answers.
That then segues nicely into my second point, the story of Alex and Louis. This tale is first referenced in Season 8, but mostly mentioned in Season 9, typically by Blake. She briefly recounts events that happened in it, but there's one major problem. We as the audience don't know this story. This is some kind of reverse dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the character does not. Here, though, the cast react to having heard the story since they were children, but we watching the show have not. Now, before you bring up the Ever After being inspired by Alice in Wonderland, that doesn't count. You can't rely on someone having seen a completely different piece of media to carry out your story. Many, myself included, know next to nothing about that story, and any references to it are thus lost on me. That is not a hallmark of a well-crafted narrative. Anyway, the references are rather sporadic, with someone, again usually Blake, commenting on something that happened in the story. She often laments that they are not following it, interpreting it as a sort of instruction manual. But these lines of dialogue from her are not sufficient to help us understand the nature of this place. A better method, if such a thing had to be done, would to have shown us a short flashback of Alex's travels, narrated by Summer Rose to a young Yang and Ruby, like what we saw in the final episode. As it stands, they seem more like non-sequiturs than typical plot progression. All this story really does is muddy the waters. We know of its existence, but it provides nothing of value for the series as a whole. This is a hallmark of something that should have been left on the cutting room floor. As a writer myself, I've experienced many instances of an idea being cool or fun, only to discover upon closer examination that they didn't add to the story. While these moments were nice upon their conception, they had to be left behind. And that's just with books, which have a bit more leniency in that regard. Shows and movies have a time limit, and so they have to be far stricter with what they choose to include. But we're not done with Alex's story yet. One major point in it is that Jean himself is featured as the Rusted Knight. So this in and of itself creates not quite a paradox, but certainly something funky with time. Given that the story exists, no matter what Jean did, that would have been in it. Whatever actions he did or did not take, that would be reflected, which means that the concepts of time and free will are also called into question. So let me clarify. Time travel is always difficult to write, and as such, I would almost always advise against it, as there are just so many things that can go wrong with it. Given that Alex's story was already written when Jean entered the Ever After, this means that he knows what occurred in it as he's heard the tale before. This means that he would naturally try to steer her along the path that he knew she should take. But how to go about doing that? The recountings we get in Season 9 are brief and don't explain much, but given that the story already existed in Jean's mind, while at the same time it was being created due to Jean's time travel, any number of factors could have warped it, resulting in the story changing. One slight change, one slip-up, one oversight, and the whole thing could spiral out into something unrecognizable. This means that the entirety of Alex's story can be called into question. Is what the characters know what really happened the first time? Would that have made Jean's actions be predetermined, or does he still have a say in the matter? Can he still choose what he'll do, or is he locked into whatever the story had laid out for him? That created a terrible dichotomy of destiny or fate, which by its very nature would deprive characters of agency and free will. And with that time travel, we have to look at just how easily it was enacted. All Jean did was pick that weird clock fruit. That's it. Doing so sent him back possibly decades. It's unclear just how much he aged in that time, but it was certainly no small jump. Stopping the time travel involved him breaking the clock, but what if he never did so? Would he have just gone back until the universe didn't exist anymore? And does this thing only go backwards in time? Do other fruits make time speed up? That would have been disastrous. And can anyone in the Ever After just go back in time like this? That's incredibly easy. Make a mistake? Well, just go back and stop it. Easy and simple. If the Curious Cat was so upset by what had happened to him, why wouldn't he just use this method? And so we come to the cat.
Purple gay!
The cat was created by the gods to do their job for them. He does seem to possess a higher level of sapience than everything else in this realm, which sets him apart. For reference, sentience is the ability to perceive, while sapience is a more complex intelligence. But I'll get to that in a bit. The cat then seemed to grow dissatisfied with the Ever After. And, I mean, why wouldn't you? It's a place where even basic physics can seem to not function. It's madness. I'd want out too. But it would seem that it couldn't go through the door that the gods did. Alex apparently promised to take it with her, but seeing as that involves possession, then I can't say that I blame her for not following through with it. She was then killed by the cat, and now it sees all humans as potential traitors. This is the pot calling the kettle black, as this thing won't hesitate to use and torment anyone to suit its own ends. I know that some people wanted to let the cat live, but why? This thing is far too dangerous to be left alive. On the flip side of the Curious Cat, though, we have the Jabberwocker. To say that this thing was underutilized would be an understatement. It's seen all of once by the main cast, immediately flees the scene, and is then killed by Neo. That's its only appearance. Everything after that is a result of Neo's semblance. Whether hers evolved like Ren's, or she got some unexplained power-up from this place is unclear, but she can conjure up copies of it to serve her whims. Whether or not its powers remain unaffected is also uncertain, but assuming that they are, then it exists solely to consume denizens of the Ever After, upon which they will not ascend. And that brings us to the big point of the Ever After: ascension. So I'm gonna come right out and say it. Most of the Afterins, as they're referred to, are not alive. Not really. But let's define what being alive really is. I'm not talking about the medical sense, like your organs functioning properly like that, and all that good stuff. I'm referring to a philosophical sense. What makes a person alive as opposed to simply existing? Free will, self-determination, being able to set goals for yourself, have values and beliefs, thinking for yourself. Most Afterins don't display any of this. They are created for a purpose and will fulfill that role until they either complete it or somehow become unable to perform their task, at which point they will ascend to either be repaired, so to speak, or be given a new role. They're, in essence, just advanced computer programs. The vast majority don't possess any drive of their own. They display basic emotional traits, like fear of the Jabberwocker or frustration when their task is made more difficult, but nothing that makes them alive. What's worse, though, is that the ascension process can be applied to humans and Faunus. And that's just as horrific as it sounds. Someone can be taken by this tree and potentially forced to ascend, having the entirety of their identity be erased and rewritten. Your values, experiences, beliefs, relationships, aspirations, all of it make you who you are. If you take that away, then that person is gone. They're dead, and someone new walks away in their place. Just look at the blacksmith with her empty, soulless eye sockets. Do you trust this thing? This reminds me of Legion's loyalty mission in Mass Effect 2. For those who haven't played it, Legion is a member of the machine race known as the Geth. The Geth have two factions: the Isolationist Geth and the Heretics. The Heretics have developed a virus that would cause the regular Geth to think the way they do, and would cause them to switch sides in the upcoming war with the Reapers. You as the player have the choice to either destroy the space station and kill most of the Heretics, or rewrite the virus to force the Heretics to join the Geth. Samara here sums up my thoughts on this pretty concisely.
Alert. This facility has little aerogravity. Geth require neither.
We've got a job to do. Let's get to it.
Shepard Commander, we concluded that destruction of this station was the only resolution to the heretic question. There is now a second option. Their virus can be repurposed. If released into the station's network, the heretics will be rewritten to accept our truth.
Either way, what makes these Geth individuals dies. If you change who someone is, how they think, you have killed them. They will be something new in the same body.
But some will bring up that RWBY ascended and she was fine. No, she didn't. She stopped the process. She didn't ascend. The one who we see start that process is Neo, and if she does appear again, then she'll be someone completely different. She died. Yes, ascending is unaliving oneself. I can't say the actual word for it because this site will have a heart attack, but you know what I mean. RWBY offed herself right in front of everyone else. Then not even 10 minutes later, they're all hugging and smiling like they won something. Is it any wonder why I didn't like Season 9? Nobody cared that RWBY just committed the unalive. Not her sister, not her friends, nobody. That's absolutely disturbing. Jean even cared more about the cat possessing Neo than RWBY's death. To tell a tale similar to Ascension, the mother of a close friend of mine was in a pretty severe car accident. She spent a long time in the hospital, and after she recovered, she had no memory of who her family was, even her children. This caused her to become a completely different person. My friend's mom, for all intents and purposes, died in that car accident. What made her who she was gone. Ascension is the same way. So any attempt to claim that ascending isn't death is futile. They might not be physically dead, but that person is gone.
If you screwed with my head, made me nod and smile at everything, I'd rather you blew my head off. Let me die as me.
But Season 9 was largely filler.
Why you boring me? I'm right!
As everything that occurred within it was reset by the end. People say that the god's backstory was important, but not really. The Ever After doesn't affect Remnant, and the god's creation isn't relevant to the plot. It just kicks the can down the road at best. What then created the tree? What about before that? And before that? And before that? It just isn't pertinent. So, to keep it relevant, I imagine that Ascension, and by extension the Ever After, was created to counter just how powerful the writers made Salem. Given that she's immortal and has infinite regenerative capabilities, then only divine intervention can stop her. Not Team RWBY, not Ironwood, not the relics, nothing short of the actions of a god. She honestly could probably have won on her own by now if she'd tried. So my guess is that at some point, someone's going to grab at the Staff of Creation, open a portal to the Ever After, force her in, and then leave her there. Then she'll either be stuck there for eternity, or have to go through Ascension, and die in the process, either becoming someone new, or potentially even having the tree take away her immortality. The dads might have given it to her, but the grandmother can probably take it away, seeing as the tree is powerful enough to have created the gods in the first place.
Take him to Detroit.
No! No, not Detroit!
Is that the best ending? No. Would I approve of this ending? No. But the writers backed themselves into a corner by making Salem too powerful, and everything about the Ever After makes it seem like it was created to solve that problem. What can stop a curse placed by a god? A more powerful god. I don't like it, but that's my best guess as to where this is heading. And why is it called the Ever After when it came before everything? Seems a bit backwards, don't you think? But anyway, I would like to thank you for watching, and leave a like if you're so inclined, and subscribe to see more. What do you think about the Ever After? Was it a worthwhile addition? Or was it a waste of time? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and may you all have a weapon in each hand.